So we're back with another Star Wars tier ranking video. And today I decided to switch it up. So instead of having, Jedi and Sith, today we have Star Wars media. We have films and television. So below I have each Star Wars film and also a couple of shows, primarily the main continuity shows like Rebels, Clone Wars, and Resistance here. And I'm just going to rate them off, from my personal favorites and how I feel about them. And the tier list we have here are Grandmaster at number one, Council Member, Master, Knight, Padawan, and Youngling as the bottom tier. Okay, just as a heads up, I'll be honest, I'm pretty easy when it comes to most media, but especially Star Wars. I grew up with it, so I'm pretty biased towards a lot of it. So you're gonna see some of my rankings probably higher than most people have them, and not probably that many at the bottom as well. So just to let you know, but I'll try to make it as interesting as possible, but not just throwing everything up into master tier or above. Really gonna think it out and really just plot on my favorites and how I feel about the shows. And let's start it all off. We're going with the first ever film in the franchise, Star Wars: A New Hope, and this is going straight up to Council Member. Now, Grant. Now, a lot of you probably would feel like this is Grandmaster, probably the best of the best, or at least one of the best. But for me, I always loved The New Hope, but it's not one of my favorite Star Wars films. Probably just because I didn't grow up with that film in particular. I actually started off with the prequels. I'm pretty sure the first movie I ever watched was A Phantom Menace. So long ago, it's kind of hard to remember when I actually started watching Star Wars. But at the end of the day, A New Hope is just so incredible. You kind of, this is where everything started. The whole journey of Luke Skywalker trying to figure out the whole journey of Luke Skywalker coming into terms with who he is and the fate of the galaxy. Just some farm boy from Tatooine who grew into becoming one of the most powerful Jedi of all time. Just a classic story. It really just one of the really one of the most impactful films of all time. Next up, we're gonna have Attack of the Clones. Now, this is going into Youngling for me. Now, like I said, I still enjoyed the movie. I actually really like Attack of the Clones. Watched it not too long ago, probably about 3, 4 months ago. And yeah, it's okay film. Definitely my least favorite Star Wars film of all time. It's the one I watched the least. But it has its moments. Like I really love Dooku in this movie. He's awesome. And seeing Boba Fett and all of that, and seeing Jango Fett and all of that, just great. But the movie just doesn't get me as excited as the rest of the films. Even when I was younger as a kid, I remember just not really liking the film. Of course, a lot of people, especially back then, criticized Hayden Christensen, as he first introduced him into the franchise, and they really were doubtful of his Anakin Skywalker. But that's not the problem to me. I never really had a problem with how he acted or how other actors portrayed themselves within the film. It just never really clicked with me. But like I said, it's still a movie I enjoy, and I love the world of Star Wars, so I'll watch it over and over again, honestly. Just at the bottom of my list. Next up is Star Wars Rebels. Okay, this is a tough one. I'm gonna have to tell you in Council Member. Star Wars Rebels is one of my favorite Star Wars shows of all time. Some of my favorite Star Wars media. I mean, Kanan is probably my favorite Jedi of all time behind Obi-Wan. And just a great show about, found family and everyone coming together. Ezra was awesome, especially the last season. I really enjoyed a lot, when they brought in Thrawn and things like that. And one of my favorite episodes of all time, Twin Sons. Everybody knows that episode is amazing. It's just Star Wars Rebels has so much great creativity and great moments, and we're now starting to see it pay off a lot more into the overarching story of Star Wars. With things like Ahsoka and the future of next Star Wars projects that Filoni has in store. So I'm ready to see what's more coming to this franchise. Up next is Star Wars Resistance. We did watch a little bit of this. Gonna go ahead and throw it in Padawan. Now, the only reason I put it in Padawan is I felt it quite funny at sometimes. Kaz is a great character, and the rest of the cast members as well. It's okay. It's like that Disney Plus show. I don't even think it's Disney Plus, Disney XD or whatever. Just a basic Disney show. Doesn't really have high stakes or anything like that. Takes place right before the sequel trilogy. It's an okay film. I mean, it's an okay show. Nothing crazy. Only reason it's above Attack of the Clones is because I actually thought it was quite funny, like I said. So pretty sure a lot of you guys are gonna give me flack in the comments, but hey, That's why we're here, right? To see how my tastes are going to be. So, up next, we have Return of the Jedi. Oh, yeah. So, this is going to go right up the council member. Beginning of the council member. Honestly, it's going to be a peak up there. So, Return of the Jedi, I like it slightly more than New Hope, but Return of the Jedi is just so awesome. I remember just one, one of my favorite moments within the entire film is honestly the whole beginning sequence, where they're attacking Jabba's palace. And yeah, all of that is awesome. The battle with the Rancor, trying to save Han Solo, which is all great. The whole film, honestly, is just very excellent. I know a lot of people have problems with the third act of the film on Endor, but I never had a problem with it. I really enjoy seeing everyone battle throughout Endor on that. I really enjoy seeing the environment of Endor. I really like forest and kind of like closed in and camped areas where you don't know what's around the next corner or tree, for example. I thought it really made a fun and interesting combat scenario to take out the Empire forces. So it really was just an overall great film for me, and I love it still this day. Okay, so next up we have Revenge of the Sith. This is going straight up to Grandmaster. I'm going to be honest with you. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Just such a classic. It's probably definitely the Star Wars movie I've seen the most. Finally seeing, after the events of the Clone Wars, how Anakin descended truly into becoming Vader. And of course, tied in with Clone Wars, I'll speak about that a little bit later. Everything kind of just formulated and turned him into Vader, which is all great. Definitely a lot of great moments, like seeing Obi-Wan versus Grievous, Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku. Even at the end, Obi-Wan versus Anakin. So yeah, a lot of Obi-Wan and Anakin moments, but this has some of the greatest quotes in all of Star Wars, some of the greatest moments. Really, just one of the most hyped films in the entire franchise for me. Star Wars Rogue One. Surprisingly, was going right up there. See, Rogue One was one of those films that I was really curious on. When they first announced it, I didn't see it right away because I didn't really care for, a story about how the Death Star plans were found and retrieved by the rebels. But about a couple months after the film released, when I checked it out, I was honestly genuinely so shocked by how much I enjoyed this film. So much so, like you can see, it's toward the top of my all-time favorites in Star Wars. The entire cast was credible. The entire story was incredible. You can kind of tell how the story is going to end, just based off, knowing the world of Star Wars and the fates of these characters. But still, everything was planned out so well. Just, can we talk about that Vader scene? Like, I'm sure everyone talks about it enough, but that Vader scene at the end of the movie was one of the greatest scenes of Vader of all time and truly showed how fearsome, how much of a force he was in the galaxy. And yeah, this was just one of the greatest movies of all time. And definitely one of the best Star Wars films. Next up is Solo. Stick you right into night. I think Solo's a pretty solid film. Kind of similar to Rogue One. When it came out, wasn't too interested in it. I actually didn't see the movie Solo until about a year after its release. We actually finally got to see that Kessel Run Han kept mentioning. And yeah, it was just really great film. Lando was great as well. Donald Glover was awesome as Lando. And, just seeing how Han and Chewie met wasn't needed, but was rewarding in this film. And honestly, I love to see more, especially for those who've seen the end of that film. One of my favorite characters in all Star Wars shows up. So when I saw that for the first time, I was definitely ecstatic. Next up, we have The Clone Wars. And this, I'll also stick into Padawan. This is okay film. It kind of started off the Clone Wars franchise, with this debut film back in 2008. It was okay. I remember I saw it. Even as a kid, I really liked the film. But as I got older, I just started to like it less and less. I think it's fine. It's nothing truly wrong with it, nothing egregious at least. But it didn't really add much to the story of Star Wars, in my opinion. It was nice to see Anakin get himself a Padawan. Back then, I know a lot of people had issues with Ahsoka and who her character was. But me as a kid, I didn't really understand the, Jedi hierarchy a lot, honestly. So when I saw Anakin get a Padawan, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like, I like this concept. And Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars to this day. So this is where the Clone Wars film is going. But to counter that argument, the Clone Wars series, going right up there to council member. Now, honestly, if we're talking about individual episodes of Clone Wars, it has some of the best episodes or best moments in all of Star Wars. Some episodes being Grandmaster worthy themselves. But as a whole, just to be honest, some of the episodes didn't really hit. There were a lot of episodes that just felt like they were placeholder, that you could really skip around. Some I barely even remember until I just look back or someone brings it up or I see a clip of it. But there are a lot of great moments like the return of Maul or Kit Fisto versus Grievous that really stand out to me. And it gives a lot of, side characters, especially the clones themselves, character and heart. And really wouldn't be Star Wars wouldn't be what it is today without this series. The Empire Strikes Back. Grandmaster. Now this isn't a surprise. Empire Strikes Back is often regarded as the greatest sequel film of all time. Empire Strikes Back has so many great moments. There's really no let up on the story at all. It doesn't miss a beat. Starting from the beginning of the film on Hoth all the way through to the end on Bespin, it's just constant action, constant thrill. This is where we're introduced to the character of Yoda in Star Wars, and he's pretty synonymous with the franchise at this point, almost as popular as Vader himself. And really, it just kind of got into the concept of Luke learning how to become a Jedi, Han and Leia's relationship, and also even meeting Lando Calrissian, and just kind of expanding upon everything that original film created to build an even more grand franchise and grand world. And of course, Vader was menacing as all hell in this film and has one of the most iconic, not just Star Wars, but movie quotes of all time. So definitely can't go without mentioning. So, with all that being said, definitely a Grandmaster territory. Next up, we have our first film for the sequels, Star Wars The Force Awakens. This is going to go right into, actually, no, Master. The first one for our Master category. I think it's a great film. I think it's a great film. It's pretty much kind of like a rehash, a retelling of Star Wars A New Hope, just from a new timeline, a new person. It's kind of like I always like to think of The Force Awakens as like a reimagining of A New Hope. It just kind of continues on with the first film with the sequel trilogy and kind of replays some of the same steps as A New Hope, but it has its own twist, of course. We're introduced to new characters Finn, Rey, Kylo Ren, Poe Dameron, and really, I remember when this film came out around the time I was in high school, and when I saw that trailer, I watched that trailer about 100 times, and it was so intriguing. I loved it. Still love the film to this day. See I have it in master category. It's not, quite up there with things like Return of the Jedi or, Revenge of the Sith or anything, but it's still a very solid film. I know Disney gets a lot of flack for the sequels, but me personally, I do enjoy the sequels for what they are, and definitely Force Awakens is one of the better parts of that franchise. Next up, we definitely have one of my favorite movies in the sequel trilogy, which is going to be super controversial, but gotta throw in Star Wars, The Last Jedi, and Council Member territory. Now, I know. We all supposed to hate the sequels. The sequels suck. Disney ruined Star Wars. Star Wars never be saying, yeah, I get it. All of that really came around the time of The Last Jedi. It was bombed. Everyone hated it, critics and fans alike. But at the end of the day, looking back, especially when the movie first came out, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see the movie when it initially came out just because I was in high school, like a freshman or sophomore in high school. Didn't have a car or anything. I had to just wait until my parents would take me to the film or I had a ride there. So I saw it about a month after the movie came out, and I loved it. I didn't have any complaints about it. I was actually shocked when I left the movie, looked online because I was trying to avoid spoilers, and saw that a lot of people weren't liking the film. It seemed kind of crazy to me because everything was awesome. I love seeing Ray meet with Luke and get training there. Of course, everyone talks about the throne room scene. You either really love it or you hate it. And me, I'm on that love it spectrum. But really, one of my favorite scenes in this entire movie has to do with Luke Skywalker. A lot of people feel like Luke wasn't portrayed how the character should be, which I can understand. Me personally, I understood the arc that Luke was going through. It made sense to me. It seemed very personal. I like when our heroes are brought down to earth and have to overcome their own battles again. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, you're going to face difficulty. You're going to have choices that you have to make, whether it's the right one or the wrong one. You have to live up to those. I like seeing how Luke, he did seclude himself and isolate himself because he was disappointed about what he did and fearful for the damage he caused with making Kylo Ren who he is. But at the end of the day, he was going to be brought back, grounded, and became a hero once again. And I always like stories like that. And in this film, I love seeing when Luke met Yoda. With the burning tree and everything, and the message Yoda left behind, that always stuck with me, and it's really one of my favorite Star Wars films of all time. As you can see, and definitely one of my favorite moments in all of the sequels. Next up, we have The Mandalorian. I'm going to throw it up in Grandmaster. The Mandalorian, I loved every season. I know season 3 can be controversial as well, but really, The Mandalorian to me is some of the greatest Star Wars of all time. It kind of brought back Star Wars into the main light, since a lot of people didn't really enjoy the sequels at all, even though they performed very well box office and money wise. Still, a lot of people were left disappointed or criticizing how that was treated, but that all seemed to change once The Mandalorian came around, especially seasons 1 and 2. Din Djarin is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And seeing his story with him and Grogu, just amazing. Can't wait for more. Hopefully, either the Filoni movie, Mandalorian season 4. Who knows at this point? But I'm ready to see. And next up, we have the Phantom Menace. You're gonna go right into Master. Now, I was gonna put it in Night because initially, I'm not gonna lie to you, Phantom Menace is definitely probably the first Star Wars movie I ever watched. But over time, I started to like it a lot more. Even back then, as a kid, I liked the movie, but I didn't love it. There were other Star Wars movies I loved more. But as time grew on me, I started to appreciate how the film was. There were a lot of, there were a lot of like critical things during the film at the time, like the introduction of Jar Jar and things like that. But it's also a lot of great things about this film that I love. A couple being the characters. I see Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is my favorite Star Wars character, and also the introduction of my favorite villain in Star Wars, who was Darth Maul. Although he didn't really do much in this movie other than look cool and fight cool, he was definitely fleshed out later on. But this introduction is where we're first introduced to the character Maul. Also seeing characters like Qui-Gon Jinn and young Anakin and Padme, and their story and how they first started, how everything came to be, was definitely a great experience. This film makes me appreciate all the other parts of Star Wars every time I watch it. So that's why it's high on this list. And lastly, we have The Rise of Skywalker. This is going to go in Jedi Knight. I don't hate the film. It definitely has probably some of the biggest flaws in all of the Star Wars franchise in terms of films. I like the whole idea of Kylo Ren turning over from the dark side and being towards the good. It really hints at that towards the first film in The Force Awakens after he killed his own father. And we got to see that story come to a close as Kylo Ren becomes who he truly is meant to be as a hero. And he wants to be a lot like Vader. Well, there you go. Vader used to be probably the evilest person in the entire galaxy. In the end, he died a hero. Same here with Kylo. You want to be like Vader? There you go, just like your grandfather. But the film definitely has its flaws. The Return to Palpatine, I still personally feel iffy about it. On one hand, I do love Palpatine and who he is, how his character is pretty much all the Sith, as he likes to say. On the other hand, I would have liked another villain to play the role. I wanted Kylo, to be the main threat, but even then, they're going to throw somebody else overarching him, kind of like a Madara Kaguya situation. I would have preferred somebody that we haven't had before. But at the end of the day, what they did, I was fine with and didn't hate. I just had problems with other things dealing with the story. But overall, it's okay film. It's very solid. Towards the bottom of Star Wars films, but not the worst thing ever. Trust me. Okay, so now we have everything listed off here. Definitely gonna be pretty controversial, but I'm pretty satisfied with my picks. Like I said, I love all parts of Star Wars. Attack of the Clones is all at the bottom of Youngling, and I still love that film. I'll watch it today, right now. Star Wars is a franchise that I feel is going to always be controversial. There's a lot of different filmmakers, a lot of different talent, a lot of different stories being told. Not all of them will gravitate towards everyone, and that's okay. You don't have to love every single film of this franchise to love the franchise. You just have to love what you love from it. And at the same time, don't hate others for the things that they appreciate from the franchise. It's all subjective and it's all cinema at the end of the day. So take what you can from it and appreciate the things you love about the franchise and keep an open mind. So comment down below what your favorite Star Wars game is, and also comment if you'd like to see another tier list. I'm thinking about doing my favorite Star Wars games, so let me know if you'd like to see that, and thanks for watching.